Wait, hold up. You think organic means safe? You think natural means you can't mess up? Oh man, do I have a story for you. So picture this. Last summer, my neighbor Tom, super nice guy, decides he's going all organic with his garden. He's reading all these blogs, watching YouTube videos, gets himself like 5 different types of organic fertilizers: compost, fish emulsion, blood meal, bone meal, the works. And he's thinking, hey, if a little is good, more must be better, right? It's just plants and natural stuff. Anyway, 3 weeks later, his tomato plants looked like they went through a nuclear winter. I'm talking brown, crusty leaves, stems turning black, and this smell. Oh my god, the smell. Like something died and decided to haunt his backyard forever. Here's what nobody tells you about organic fertilizer. Yes, it's natural. Yes, it's better for the environment, but you can absolutely destroy your plants with it. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like, why it happens, and how to avoid turning your garden into a crime scene. I remember walking over to Tom's place because he called me in a panic. He thought maybe it was a disease or some kind of pest attack. When I got there and saw what was happening, I knew immediately. The soil was dark, almost black and wet, even though it hadn't rained in days. There were these weird white patches on the surface. And that smell hit me from like 10 feet away. It wasn't the good earthy garden smell. This was sharp, chemical almost, even though everything he used was organic. His wife was standing there with this bag of fish emulsion, asking if she should add more to help the plants recover. I practically had to grab it out of her hands. That's the thing about this problem. When people see their plants dying, their first instinct is to feed them more. It's like when you're sick, and someone keeps bringing you food even though you can't eat. The plants don't need more nutrients. They're drowning in them. Let's start with the most obvious sign: leaf burn. And I'm not talking about a little yellow tip here and there. When you overload your plants with organic fertilizer, the leaves start getting these brown, crispy edges. It looks like someone took a lighter to them. The tips curl up, they get brittle, and they literally crumble when you touch them. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's just some cosmetic damage, right? Wrong. This is your plant screaming for help. What's happening underneath is way worse. See, when you dump too much organic matter into your soil, all these microorganisms go crazy. They start breaking down all that material at once, and this process uses up nitrogen from the soil. Your plants are basically suffocating while swimming in food they can't even access yet. But here's where it gets interesting. The symptoms you see depend on what type of organic fertilizer you overdid it with. Did you go crazy with the nitrogen-rich stuff like blood meal or fish emulsion? Your plants are going to grow like they're on steroids, huge, dark green leaves. Sounds good? It's not. Those leaves are weak, they attract pests like crazy, and your plant puts all its energy into leaves instead of fruits or flowers. I've seen tomato plants that were 6 feet tall with exactly 2 tiny tomatoes on them. Completely useless. Tom's biggest mistake was thinking that because he bought everything from the organic section at the garden center, he couldn't possibly harm anything. He told me he figured plants would just take what they needed and ignore the rest. That's not how it works. Plants don't have a choice. When the soil around their roots is loaded with nutrients, those nutrients get pulled in whether the plant needs them or not. Now let's talk about the smell. Oh boy, the smell. This is probably the first thing you'll notice before you even see the damage. When organic fertilizer breaks down too fast because there's too much of it, it creates this intense, putrid odor. It's not the nice earthy smell of compost. This is ammonia, this is sulfur, this is your neighbors calling a town meeting about you. If your garden smells like a swamp or a sewer, you've crossed the line, and that smell isn't just annoying, it's a sign that your soil has gone anaerobic. That means there's no oxygen down there. The good bacteria that help your plants can't survive, and the bad stuff takes over. Your soil is literally rotting. I've seen people dig into their soil after overdoing it with manure, and it's this black slimy mess that looks like tar. That's not soil anymore. That's a disaster. Alright, so you're probably wondering, how does this even happen? I mean, organic fertilizer is supposed to release nutrients slowly, right? That's like the whole selling point. Well, yes and no. Here's the thing. Most people hear organic and they think it's impossible to overdo it. They think synthetic fertilizers are the dangerous ones because they're concentrated and fast-acting. But organic fertilizers can be just as concentrated. Blood meal is like 13% nitrogen. That's not a joke. Bat guano can be even higher. And when you apply too much of this stuff, You're basically dumping a massive amount of nutrients all at once, but it gets more complicated. The real problem isn't always the fertilizer itself, it's the combination. Tom, my neighbor, he didn't just use one type. He mixed compost with fish emulsion, then added blood meal, then threw in some manure for good measure. Each one of these releases nutrients at different rates. The fish emulsion breaks down in days, the blood meal takes weeks, the compost takes months. So he created this situation where his soil had waves of nutrients coming in constantly, and the poor plants couldn't handle it. I remember asking him why he used so many different types, and he said he watched this YouTube video about layering nutrients. The guy in the video made it sound like you needed all these different sources to get the perfect balance. But what works for someone with established soil in California isn't going to work the same way for clay soil in the Midwest. Tom didn't test his soil first. He didn't know what he was starting with. He just kept adding and adding. And here's something most people don't realize. The speed at which organic fertilizer breaks down depends on temperature and moisture. In hot, humid weather, that breakdown happens crazy fast. Tom applied all this stuff in June when temperatures were hitting 90 degrees. The microorganisms in his soil went into overdrive. What should have been a slow release over months happened in weeks. It was like setting off a bomb underground. Let me show you another sign you probably wouldn't expect. Wilting. Yeah, you heard that right. Your plants can wilt even when the soil is wet. This happens because too much fertilizer increases the salt concentration in your soil. Water moves from areas of low salt concentration to high salt concentration. So instead of water moving into your plant roots like it's supposed to, it actually gets pulled out. Your plants are dying of thirst while sitting in wet soil. It's cruel. I saw this happen to someone's pepper plants. She was watering them every day. The soil was muddy, and these peppers just kept drooping. She thought maybe they needed more water, so she watered more. Then, she thought maybe they needed more food, so she added more organic fertilizer. She was literally doing the exact opposite of what these plants needed, and within a week, they were dead. Completely dead. Just brown sticks in mud. The worst part was watching her try to save them. She kept checking the soil moisture with her finger and it was always wet. So she'd stand there confused, trying to figure out what was wrong. She even brought me a leaf to look at, asking if I thought it was a virus. When I dug down and looked at the roots, they were brown and limp. That's when I knew. The salt concentration had fried them. Now here's a sign that takes a while to show up, but it's devastating. Nutrient lockout. This is when you have so many nutrients in your soil that they start interfering with each other. Too much phosphorus can lock out iron and zinc. Too much potassium can block calcium and magnesium. Your plants start showing weird deficiency symptoms even though the soil is packed with nutrients. You'll see yellow leaves with green veins, purple stems, spots and patches everywhere. It looks like your plant has some rare disease, but really, it's just drowning in food it can't process. I had this happen to my strawberries once. I got excited about this new organic fertilizer blend, applied it heavy because I wanted huge strawberries. Instead, my plants started getting these yellow leaves with dark green veins, classic iron deficiency. But I knew my soil had plenty of iron. I tested it. The problem was, I had added so much phosphorus from bone meal that it bound up all the iron. My plants couldn't access it. And the fix? I had to flush the soil with tons of water, basically wash out all that excess fertilizer I had just paid good money for. Let's talk about root damage because this is where things get really nasty. When you overload soil with organic fertilizer, especially fresh manure or uncomposted materials, the breakdown process generates heat. I'm not talking a little warmth. I'm talking temps that can hit 140 to 160 degrees. That's hot enough to cook your plant roots. I've pulled plants out of the ground and the roots were brown and mushy, literally cooked. And then there's the pest situation. Oh man, nobody warns you about this. When you overload with organic fertilizer, especially nitrogen-rich stuff, your plants become pest magnets. Those big, lush, dark green leaves I mentioned earlier, aphids absolutely love them. They're soft, they're packed with nutrients, and they're easy to pierce. I've seen plants go from 0 aphids to completely covered in just a few days after someone overdid it with fish emulsion. But it's not just aphids. Fungus gnats breed like crazy in soil that's too rich with organic matter. If you've ever had those annoying little flies hovering around your pots, that's why. Spider mites love stressed plants, and guess what overloaded plants are? Stressed. Even slugs and snails show up in bigger numbers because decomposing organic matter attracts them. My friend Sarah learned this the hard way with her roses. She applied this organic rose food, then added compost, then threw in some worm castings. Within 2 weeks, her roses had aphids, Japanese beetles, and black spot fungus. The combination of over-fertilization making the leaves weak and the excess moisture from all that organic matter created the perfect storm. She ended up having to cut her roses back to nothing and start over. I remember visiting her garden right when it was at its worst. She had this one rose bush that was her pride and joy, been growing it for 3 years. The leaves were so covered with aphids that they looked gray instead of green, and when you got close, you could see the aphids were actually giving birth to more aphids right there on the leaves. It was like a horror movie. She tried spraying them off with water, but they just came back the next day because the plant was still pumping out those weak, sugary leaves that aphids can't resist. Here's something visual that's a dead giveaway. Salt crust. If you see white or gray crusty buildup on the surface of your soil or around the drainage holes of your pots, that's salt accumulation from too much fertilizer. With synthetic fertilizers, this happens fast, and it's super obvious. With organic fertilizers, it takes longer, but it still happens. That crust isn't just ugly, it's a barrier. It prevents water from soaking in properly, and it can burn any part of your plant that touches it. I've seen this get so bad that the soil surface looked like it had a layer of frost on it in the middle of summer. People try to scrape it off, but it just comes back. The only real fix is to flush the soil repeatedly or replace it entirely. And if you've got plants growing in that soil, good luck. You're basically doing surgery on them while they're trying to survive. Now let's talk about what this looks like in specific plants, because it's not the same across the board. Tomatoes are probably the most dramatic. When you overload tomatoes with nitrogen, they grow massive but produce almost nothing. You get blossom end rot from calcium imbalances. The leaves curl and twist. And the few tomatoes you do get are flavorless and watery, because the plant is pushing growth instead of flavor development. I grew tomatoes one year where I thought I was being smart by adding extra blood meal for bigger fruits. The plants grew taller than me. I'm talking 7 feet tall, thick stems, leaves everywhere. But when it came time for tomatoes, I got maybe 5 per plant, and they were pale, had weird spots, and tasted like cardboard. Meanwhile, my neighbor who barely fertilized at all, had plants, half the size, producing 20 tomatoes each, that actually tasted like tomatoes. It was embarrassing. Leafy greens like lettuce and spinach, they bolt immediately. Too much nitrogen makes them think it's time to reproduce. So they send up flower stalks and the leaves turn bitter. I've seen people grow lettuce that was completely inedible because they overdid it with blood meal thinking it would make bigger leaves. Flowers are heartbreaking when this happens. You get tons of foliage and barely any blooms. I'm talking huge bushy plants with maybe 3 flowers total. Or the buds form but drop off before opening. Roses, petunias, zinnias, doesn't matter. Too much organic fertilizer, especially nitrogen, and you get a green monster with no flowers. Root vegetables are probably the worst. Carrots, beets, radishes. When you overload the soil with fresh organic matter or too much nitrogen, these plants put everything into top growth. You pull up your carrots and they're tiny, hairy, split, and twisted. Your radishes are all leaves and a root the size of a pea. Your beets are woody and taste like dirt. It's so disappointing. Fruit trees have their own special set of problems. Too much organic fertilizer promotes excessive vegetative growth. You get water sprouts everywhere, those straight vertical shoots that don't produce fruit. The tree becomes more susceptible to fire blight and other diseases. And here's the kicker. All that soft new growth doesn't harden off properly before winter, so you get winter damage and die back. So, how do you know if you're about to cross that line? How much is too much? This is where it gets tricky because, unlike synthetic fertilizers where you have exact NPK numbers and application rates, organic fertilizers are variable. A bag of compost from one place is different from another place. Homemade compost is different every batch. There's no perfect formula. But here are some rules that'll keep you safe. First, if the package says apply every 4 weeks, don't apply every 2 weeks. Don't apply double thinking it'll work twice as fast. It won't. You'll just burn your plants. Second, never mix multiple high nitrogen organic fertilizers at the same time. Pick one, use it correctly. Don't layer blood meal on top of fish emulsion on top of manure. That's insanity. I learned this lesson the expensive way. I had this vegetable garden where I was determined to grow the biggest, most productive plants ever. I read somewhere that professional growers use multiple fertilizer sources, so I figured I should too. I mixed in aged manure when I planted, then side-dressed with blood meal a few weeks later, then started weekly applications of fish emulsion. Within a month, my squash plants had leaves the size of dinner plates, but only produced 3 squash total. The zucchini, which usually grows like crazy, gave me 2 tiny fruits before the plant collapsed. I wasted an entire growing season and probably $50 on fertilizers I didn't need. Third, and this is huge, be careful with fresh or uncomposted materials. I don't care how organic it is, fresh manure, fresh grass clippings, fresh anything that hasn't broken down yet should not go directly on your plants. Let it compost first. That breakdown process needs to happen away from your plant roots, not right on top of them. My uncle made this mistake with chicken manure from his own chickens. He figured since it came from his backyard, it must be safe to use right away. He spread it around his tomato plants while it was still fresh. 2 days later, those plants looked like they'd been hit with a flamethrower. The ammonia from the fresh manure literally burned the stems. Some of the plants died outright. The ones that survived were stunted for the rest of the season. Fresh chicken manure is incredibly hot. It needs to age for at least 6 months before you can safely use it. Fourth, pay attention to your plants, not the calendar. Just because it's feeding time doesn't mean your plants need food. Look at them. Are they growing well? Are the leaves a healthy color? Are they producing? If yes, you don't need to feed them. I know it's tempting to stay on a schedule, but plants don't read calendars. I've got this friend who sets reminders on her phone for everything. Water the plants, feed the plants, prune the plants. She's super organized, which is great, but she follows those reminders even when the plants don't need it. I've watched her fertilize plants that were already dark green and growing perfectly fine, just because her app told her it was time. A week later, she's wondering why the leaves are turning brown. The plants were already getting everything they needed from the soil. The extra fertilizer just pushed them over the edge. Now if you've already overdone it, if you're watching this and thinking, oh no, that's my garden, don't panic, you can fix this. First thing, stop adding any fertilizer. Obvious, but people keep feeding dying plants thinking more food will help. It won't. Second, flush the soil with water. For pots, run water through them until it's coming out clear from the drainage holes. For garden beds, deep water several times over a few days. You're trying to wash out the excess nutrients. Third, add plain compost or mulch to buffer the soil. Not fertilizer, not manure, just plain organic matter that'll help balance things out. Fourth, be patient. Your plants need time to recover. Don't expect them to bounce back overnight. It might take weeks, and some plants might not make it. That's okay. Learn from it. Here's the thing that nobody talks about. The best fertilizer program is the one your plants actually need, not the one that sounds best or costs the most or is the most organic. I've seen people spend hundreds on premium organic fertilizers and kill their plants. I've seen other people use basic compost and grow amazing food. Your soil is alive, it's not just dirt. When you add organic fertilizer, you're feeding the soil ecosystem, not just the plants. And that ecosystem needs balance. Too much food and it goes haywire. The microorganisms explode in population, they use up all the oxygen, they create toxic byproducts, and everything crashes. It's like overfeeding fish in an aquarium. More isn't better. So look, organic fertilizer is great. I use it, I recommend it, but respect it, follow the directions, watch your plants, and remember that sometimes the best thing you can do for your garden is nothing at all. Let it be. Let the soil do its thing. Your plants will thank you for it. Trust me. Recap from Part 1 content already delivered above to ensure all script remains continuous in narrative order. Hold for pacing and end screen buffer as part of the 16:9 YouTube delivery.